Hi guys, my name is Vinita Kaur Chiragia and I have graduated from Academy of Architecture in 2011. I am one of the 3 co-founders of Studio Design Jatra, the other 2 being Pratik and Shardul. I would want to take you through images of few of our projects so as to get you an idea of what kind of architectural practice we run. So we have successfully completed 5 years of practice in the rural sector of Palghar, Thane and Raigad districts of Maharashtra. We work on contextually and climatologically relevant architecture using natural materials and sharpening the available skill set of these regions where we work. We love experimenting and working with rural communities with the principles of environmental cyclic systems at the heart of it. We are involved in community, building a community in Dahanu through a few social initiatives allied to architecture. So to sum up my journey of architecture till date, I would say it is divided into 2 parts. The first one comprising of the architectural studies, and the second one where I practiced with 3 of the great architects today. So the first year was full of abstraction. It was a big mumbo jumbo. It was absolutely fun, but I had no clue what I was doing. And along with it, it broke many notions of the kind of life that I had lived till then. The second year, on the other hand, was fun, more on ground. It was very sensitizing due to one of our professors, architect Malik Singhil. The third year was very hectic and yet fun. The fourth year was very dry and boring thanks to the subjects. The fifth year was the first time where I realized that I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life or my thesis. The internship part was fun though. Now coming post-graduation, I joined one of our professors, architect Mahesh Khanolkar. Now to speak about him, I would say he's absolutely passionate and driven towards the kind of architectural practice that he runs. After him, I joined another professor of us who was also our mentor in the second year, architect Malik Singhil, for 6 months. Now, Malik sir also runs a eco-environmentally friendly architectural practice in the rural areas. And I would say he is extremely sensitive and influential in himself. He is a great icon. And I would say I would credit most of my architectural journey till date to him. Now, after Malik sir, I joined Chitra Vishwanath in Bangalore, who's another self-made, strong architectural female icon in herself. And it was between Malik sir and Chitra Vishwanath where I had started constructing Shardul's house with him in the village. And from there on, Design Jatra was not completely formed, but it was in the process of the birth. Now, looking back in perspective, during the architectural studies, there are many questions and notions and comments which pour in from all the directions. And along with those comes many hopes and dreams which get woven throughout the journey. And you are absolutely clueless as to where you will land up in. And yet there is a general notion which says once you're graduated, your life is sorted. But I would say maybe it's true for most, but not for all. After working for 3 years with such great architects and minds, I was back to square one with a notion that I didn't want to continue practicing architecture for the nth number of time. And yet I was clear about 3 things only in 3 years. The first one was that I didn't want to be behind the desk anymore. The second was that I didn't want to harm the environment as far as possible. And the third was that I wanted to do something with my own hands. Now there was something, like I had these realizations based on the kind of great architects that I worked with. Now these people, there was something which was there in common with all 3 of them, and that was their devotion and passion towards the kind of architectural practice or towards the cause which they thought that they were working towards. And that was something that even I wanted to feel for something. I did not know what, but something. And then at that particular point where I had decided that I will quit architecture, I received a phone call from Pratik, and he told me that there's a project in a village. I needed to be there on site for 3 to 4 days a week. And I needed to work not just as an architect, but also as a facilitator. It was absolutely exhilarating, and I said yes instantly. After which, generally, people of my batch had a sorted life after 3.5 years, while I was again questioning and cross-questioning myself, my journey, and I had absolutely no clue where I was heading to. And there came a whole new set of questions as to, are you going to practice mud architecture? Did we educate you just to go in the villages and work as labor? And many more such questions. So yes, I was amongst the many who had realized that I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. And yet I would say I was amongst the very few who were very sure that I will not settle for anything that did not make me happy. So this is my journey in search of happiness. It started with one of the first projects, which was the project where Pratik called me. It was my first project with architect Anuradha Vakde in a small hamlet of Palsunda in Jawhar district of Maharashtra. Now the setting of the whole project was extremely beautiful. It was covered on the north side by the Sayadris. It had Upper Vaitana reservoir. It had a dry deciduous forest adjoining itself, and there was a small hamlet of Palsunda. So this is like the fabric of the village that we see here in the image. The central house is the house of the village Patil. It doesn't look like much, but that is what it was. And this fellow came to us with a challenge saying that if you can make my house, if you can transform it into something bigger within the cost of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana square feet rate, we would be more than happy to give you the project. If not, we'll make it ourselves. So there we were stuck with the first project, and the concept was budget. So now looking at the whole village part of it, like the project came with a few constraints, and there were a few implications because of those constraints. So to say the first constraint was there was water shortage. It was absolutely surprising for us that the village, which was so close to the Upper Vaitana reservoir, faced a water shortage issue. Now these people were not allowed to take the water from that particular reservoir because the water from there came to Mumbai, and there was chances of contamination because of which they were not allowed to touch it. The implication of this was that we had to make something using materials which required hardly any curing. The second constraint was the budget constraint of the client himself, where he said that I have a particular budget. If you can work in it, fair enough. If not, I will not be able to give you the project. So it was like the practice began and it was the end of it. So we had to do something about it. Hence, phase-wise construction was something which was an implication that came into picture. The third constraint was when we looked into the skill set of the region, we realized that there was an below average skill set, whether it was for the stone masonry or for the brick masonry or for the woodwork or for that matter finishes. So we knew that we had to have something which was extremely simple and regular in nature, which the masons would be able to replicate and do in a better way. Then the fourth one was that the project fell inside a seismic zone 3, and we had some disaster resilient inputs from our end. The fifth one was that the client wanted to reuse as much of the materials from his old house into the making of his new house, because of which we had to document and check all the members and the existing materials structurally speaking. So after this, when reality struck us for the first time on ground, we realized that concepts may not be always sketches, and we had presented these graphs to the client. Now these graphs are permutation combinations of different materials, so with different costings. So for example, the walls had a few permutation combinations, whether you use burnt brick with cement mortar or with mud mortar, or unburnt bricks with cement mortar, mud mortar, so on and so forth, for every element, may it be the wall or the foundation, the roof or the structural system. And the client was explained that this is what you can choose from. The client chose, and these were the only two drawings to the left that you can see, the plan and the section, which was submitted to him, which he hardly understood. And on the right hand side, you can see that we had a constraint wherein we knew that we had to go in a phase-wise construction manner. Hence, the implemented design came into picture as an aspect of planning, wherein we had designed a central core which could be built in the first go, whereas the rest of the 4 verandas could be as and when the client gets the budget to. Then another aspect was the structural stability aspect, wherein the central core acted as the structural member, which would support the verandas on all four sides. Now there were two lintel beams which ran at the upper level and at the lower level to stabilize the structure. These were a few working models which were made for the site, as the masons did not understand head or tail of the drawings. So this is a brief of the clients, like the brief of the whole project. Like the client's family were the housemakers. They were not just clients sitting in some air-conditioned office telling me what to do. They were a part of the housemaking process. They were the builders. They were the laborers. And yet we did not call them laborers. I was staying with their family. I was one of them. The villagers of the adjoining houses joined us too in the construction process. Now, stone of the old house was used for foundation. Old timber was reused as far as possible, which was structurally strong enough. We had to order a few new timber members. The client made his own bricks, unlike any other client that I would come across till date would have done that. Now, mud came from his farm, which was used to make mud mortar by his own father. Water was fetched from 2-kilometer radius. It wasn't amply available from the tap. It had to be bought from 2 kilometers away from the stream which ran by the females of the house. And we had designed very small windows with only grills so that we save on to the cost of the shutters. Plastering was done using mud and cow dung by the family members themselves, and there was no external labor that came into picture per se. The flooring had tiles only in one of the community rooms. Rest of them had rammed earth floors along with cow dung smearing. And bathrooms was the only place which had tiles and cement. This was about the project. Now that is not something that I would want to explain or touch upon more or less, but it is this. It is my experience while I was doing this architecture. It was the first time where I got to attend a tribal wedding of my life. That was the first tribal wedding, and I haven't experienced anything like that till date. It beats everything. I had a blast. We danced for 5 hours straight, starting from 8 in the night till 1 o'clock in the night. Old females were absolutely drunk. We had no idea what we were doing, but it was great. There were loudspeakers with no, you didn't have any deadlines that 10 p.m. is it? You don't have to exceed that, but no, it is a village. Everybody is a part of the celebration, and it was amazing. I would say it is something that every person should go through. Secondly, unlike any other project, I got to eat healthy, organic, fresh farm-grown food. The water was absolutely sweet and from the borewell. We plucked seasonal fruits while the construction was going on. I was told not to eat certain things beyond an extent because me as an urban dweller would not be able to digest it. The hospitality was excellent. Then there was one incident where I had told the client to purchase some materials before I came. Now my journey was not like a half-an-hour journey to the site, but it was like a 5-hour long journey, changing 4 modes of transport where people are stuffed in jeeps, like 22 people in a jeep. I hardly can imagine how I did it back then. But I traveled 5 hours just to find that he had not arranged anything. I was absolutely angry. Now, this is not something that an architect was angry with the client, but it was more like I was a part of the family, and one of the family members was angry with the other one. And then he started giving me excuses. I got so mad. I just told him, I'm leaving the house right away. And by the time I reached out from the village, the last bus had left. So I had to catch hold of an old tribal couple because of my high ego issues. I was very much sure that I'm not going to go back to his house. So I caught hold of an old tribal couple on the bus stop. I just requested them if I could stay the night with them. They were more than happy to invite me. And I stayed at their house for the night, feeling absolutely safe with 12 of their kids. And that was an excellent experience in itself. Then along with that, I also attended, like my client, the Patil of the village, was a Kirtankar. And I attended a Kirtan where he, along with many others, had this round of Kirtan going on. Then, my role was not restricted to being an architect, making drawings, making people work as per the drawings, but it was more of a labor sometimes, more of a mason, teaching them how to place the bricks, hold the plumb, hold the line level, everything. I was an architect, I was a facilitator, I was a material purchaser at times. I was, of course, their family member, which I still am. I was a sister to somebody, I was a teacher to somebody, I was a student myself, and every possible role that I can imagine. Then there was this one instance where I had climbed the roof to just explain the joinery, the roof joinery of 4 hip rafters coming together to the masons over there. And that was the first time when the villagers got a shock of their life. And they were like, how can a female climb up a roof? It might not be something great for urban dwellers, but they were in absolute awe. And that is where they remembered me as the engineer who climbed the roof. And the kids were great. They used to come and have fun during the daytime. And after the daytime got over, like 5 p.m., my day was off. I took some break. And yeah, I was a teacher after that, tutoring those kids. These are experiences which I would not have gotten from any other practice where I was sitting behind the desk. This is something that maybe I was looking for. So that is the final product wherein the old house got transformed into what we see here. So that's the house. It is not something which is absolutely pleasing to the eye, but it is something which is experientially so rich in itself that everybody who has worked upon it knows the value of it, and there is a sense of belongingness towards it, which is what I feel is missing in most of the works that I did till date. These are a few images of the house. That's the community center, wherein the kids of the Gram Panchayat come in, the meetings of the Gram Panchayat take place. There's a facility of a computer lab over here, which can anytime come in as and when the budget crops up. That's the kitchen. That is my client who's sitting at the bottom right-hand side, happily plastering his own home along with his family members. That's me on top of the roof explaining the joinery to the masons. Now, this brought me a lot of happiness. It was something that I was maybe always looking for, the excitement, the adventure, which was not there behind the desk. And it also cured my vitamin D issues. So I would want to chalk down such a few experiences of an architect beyond the role of an architect. The random incidences not just related to this village, but they are more related to such communities where I was in work with. So that is Prateek explaining Shardul's thesis model. Now we had taken this model at the junction of the Gram Panchayat, and we randomly started pointing out at the model and then to the houses. It intrigued something in the villagers around, and they were more than interested to see what we were discussing. So this was an impromptu staged drama that we had to do in order to gather the village. Now, sometimes as facilitators, you have to do such things. So this was our role as the director of taking initiatives in the village where Prateek stays. And it had an amazing response, as in the youth of that particular village, after this drama was over, came to us, and that was the first self-help male group which got formed in the village. This is another story wherein I would say that the role of an architect is more of a budgeteer. Now, this was a project that we had done with Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. We were the greening consultants, technological consultants for the state of Maharashtra. And that is us sitting with the clients, discussing different models of their particular house with different budgets. The client had the option to choose whichever he thought was fitting in his budget, along with the pros and cons that we discussed with him. So we were more of budgeteers as well. This is a very interesting story. Like, this was the first time where we went to this village, and we were trying to share a few drawings and documents to explain the kind of architecture we want to do over here, or the kind of houses which we wanted to build. And these people didn't understand anything. They just kept the book aside. They started sketching with their own hands on the ground. And that is where we realized that we were so stupid not to understand that we will have to change the mode of communication when we were in a different context. So this was us as students learning from the people who knew maybe better than us. This is another interesting story where we were again more of a facilitator than an architect. So we had organized this meeting wherein all the youth of the village had come together along with a few oldies, and we were chalking out a resource map of the village. Now, this is exactly how we do that. So we had taken a few rangoli powders, and we had made these small thermocol blocks. We made a village, we made the roads, we made the mountains, we made the fields. Now, everybody who gathered while the activity was going on got a clear picture of what their territory was. And after this, what was extremely exciting was these people really could point out saying this is the road which needs repair and this is the junction which needs to be revitalized. And it was excellent to see people coming together and interacting within themselves. So this was us as facilitators. This is Anuradha Vakde, who is teaching the students of the village in Palsunda. So that is us as teachers. This is again for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where the three people on the right hand side are the clients. And we were trying a few plaster samples. Now these plaster samples were in mud and there was hardly any water which was required for the curing part of it, of course. And out of these 4 samples that we did, the client did choose one of the mud mortars which performed better than the other 3 over cement mortar plaster. And the client was extremely happy that he could save so much of money and water. This is us in one of the meetings with the junior engineers of the state of Maharashtra. Now we were like mediators where we had to take care of these beneficiaries of the village on one side and these junior engineers on the other side, whereas they were to be explained that if you if the yojana had to be green, if there was something that could improve in the yojana, we will have to get into the local vernacular architecture of it, without which it is absolutely impossible for people to relate with the kind of cement small blocks that they were making instead of their homes and houses. So that was us as educators to these people. Now, this is one of the fields in Shardul's village. This is Shardul's farm actually, and we were rice farming there. So our role, since this was our friend, but nonetheless we have planted for other people as well, we knew that we couldn't just stop at making houses. There was something even more to it. Like the whole of Palghar Thane region is a rice growing region, and it is a very important aspect of these people to grow rice. And hence we came together as friends and we started planting rice. Now this was us as event organizers. So that is Mr. Rajendra Bhatt. He's a natural farmer. And this event was organized through us for the villagers over there, for the people who are interested in rice farming, so that he can come and explain the benefits of not using pesticides and chemicals in their farms, but going back to their roots, wherein such a traditional kind of farming was taking place, where no such inputs were needed in the first place, and the soil was healthy. Now, this is one of the photographs from the studio which we are planning in the Hanu. So these are a few kids who had come for the workshop, and they are making cob balls. And yeah, we were a part of the unskilled labor, and we were not sitting behind the desk or making drawings. We were just doing things with our own hands. People are designing things on the spot. They were more than happy to respond to the site conditions as and when need be. That is an architect as an artisan. Now, it is not just the unskilled or skilled labor part of it, but it is also getting life into the structure by having certain inputs which give life to the structure. So they were making these small chotis out of these rice straw and hay, which they kind of weaved into a spiral, and they just wove it with the wattle, and then it was plastered. And these girls are again doing the wattle part of it. And this was another community project wherein this was the last day of plastering. And the mud that we find over there is Multani Mitti, the mud that we use for face packs. This village was like absolutely blessed with such a mud around, which they use for plaster and also for playing Holi. So it was one of the rituals wherein the last day of plaster was when they used to just paint each other with this mud. And these are part of the student volunteers who joined in to, in an exchange kind of volunteer program, wherein they would get to learn a new technology while the village will get self-help from these girls. So I was more than happy that I was not just the one sitting behind the desk, there was more to me. This is one of the projects in the Hanu. It's a social give and take initiative. Now, generally, the Varli community that we know is famous for the Varli paintings. Frankly speaking, I'm sick of seeing those, but there's more to Varlis, okay? So this particular handicraft that you see is a fish catcher. Now, these people make this handicraft using a very basic bamboo weaving skill. And what they do is they place it on the upstream of the streams, and the fishes crawl into it, get trapped into it, and boom, food is ready for the day. So looking at this aspect, we being architects realized that there was so much of potential lying in this, and the people that we were working in with the villagers, like the youth of it, did not want to leave the villages. Now this is, I guess, a scenario for most of the villages today. The youth does not want to leave it, but then they do want employment. The cities are sick of people coming in and overpopulating it day and night. So we thought that we could do something about it. What we realized by studying that is like the bamboo nets which they used for catching fishes was something which made them plant bamboos, something that made them take care of the bamboos which they grow. And when the nylon nets came into picture, these people stopped planting those bamboos or taking care of them. And that is where we realized a very important thing, that once you consume the biodiversity that you have in terms of natural resources, that is when you start taking care of it. And there we were. So we started making architectural stationaries out of it. And this is where the village came together, the youth came together to make these handicrafts. That is another artisan of the village who is absolutely skilled in bamboo weaving. And he has made a few coaster designs. On the right hand side, we can see the exchange of skills where we shared a few new skills while he had a few old skills with him. Now, this is a very important project for us and for the community of Dahanu where Pratik stays in. Now, this is a community seed bank and also a workspace for these bamboo artisans and designers like us. It's a collaboration. So this is one of the neighboring padas. Pada is a small unit of a village. So these people came together as a community to fence their whole field. Now, once that was done, they could stop the cattle grazing, which was like open after monsoon, and they could do some community farming with it. So this is one of our trials. Like we had a great person, like a great activist called Sanjay Patil sir from BIF in Jabhar, who gave us 56 species of local rice varieties, which are conserved through him, through BIF. And we planted those 56 varieties on different mounds of this farm. And that is the kind of produce that we got from each and every species of it. We decided to go ahead with a few which grew pretty well on the farm. And that is how we conserved those seeds. Now, this is Pratik's old house, which we thought could be converted into the seed bank, the community seed bank, come a space for Design Jatra as a studio, come a space for the bamboo artisans. So this is where we were going to transform this house into something which is still in process. And what is very interesting is that there was a kind of the process in which we tried to tackle it. It was where college students were introduced into the village. They were told to learn things, learn these technologies, and give their inputs. So this is the students, these are the students who are sitting around Pratik, and we're explaining it to them how mud works, what is cob, what is wattle and daub, how do they perform, how are they better, what are the constraints, what are the pros and cons, you know. So this is where they were getting educated. And then we taught them hands-on cob and wattle and daub, which was this. And these guys did a great job. Like every person can come back and they know that I have worked on this particular wall and I have made a mess of this particular detail. So these are a few girls who are working on the wattle and daub part of it, like on one of the partition walls. These are a few people working on the daub of the wattle and plastering a few of their details, which they happily made. Then it wasn't just cob and wattle and daub. There were also timber joineries which were introduced. So there were samples which were shown to them, post which they started working on those samples and they made their own joineries happily, took them away. So it was finally time where the hard work was paying off and the space slowly started getting converted into what we see here in the photos. So all of this again is not conventionally beautiful, but it is something where people have an ownership towards. It is something where they're more than happy to make this place, and it might not be beautiful, but it is something which they relate with. So these are a few images of the studio which is coming up, and Studio Design Jatra. And I would like to thank all the communities that that helped us help themselves and in turn help us, and to Ethos and ASEG for giving us this opportunity for the talk. Thank you.